Moving on to question 5. Explain how heat is transferred by the process of convection. So they're telling us that it's convection from the inside of the stove to the top of the chimney. Okay, so we're interested in why does the heat go from there to there? All right, and they're asking us to explain convection. Okay, it's a 3-mark question. So what do we need? What 3 things do we need to say to explain convection? Well, the first is that they've told us that we may use a diagram to support our answer as well. Okay, so I'm going to put, at point A down here, okay, where the fire is, okay, then what's happening? Okay, the air is getting heated up, so we've got to be careful here. That means that the particles, the air particles, and I'm just going to put at A because I've got my diagram, okay, they're going to move faster, okay? Or we can talk about them having, an increase in kinetic energy. Yeah, so they gain energy from the thermal energy store over the log burning stove, okay, and that increases the kinetic energy store. But look, it's important that we're talking about the air particles here, right? So that means, okay, that when they collide with each other, okay, then the intermolecular spacing between the air particles, okay, so space between the air particles will increase, right? So, and again, we've got to refer to the air particles here, right? Will increase. Okay, so that means that the hot air here, okay, so hot air expands. Okay, it's now taking up more space than it did previously. Okay, so that means that the hot air is now less dense. Okay, and that means that the hot air is now going to rise to B. Okay, so the hot air now rises. Okay, so if you look, the first part of my explanation talks about the air particles, okay, to explain it on a molecular, on a kind of using the kinetic theory particle model, and then the latter part of my answer talks about the hot air expanding, right, and being less dense and rising. Okay, there's no insulating material around the chimney. Okay, so now it's asking us to explain into conduction, right? And again, we've got to talk about the particles. And again, we can use a diagram to explain if you want, right? So if we think about, here's the hot area, here's the cold area, and inside the chimney, we've got all of these particles like that. You can see that I've drawn them touching each other because a metal is a solid, all right? And first of all, the heat is trying to move from hot to cold. Okay, that's the direction of conduction. It moves from hot areas of heat to areas of coldness. Okay, as that happens, these ones that are in contact with the hot, they're going to start vibrating more, right? Okay, and that idea of vibrations is an important one because metals are solid, okay, and vibration means moving backwards and forwards around a fixed position, right? Okay, so it's important that we use the word vibration. If you talk about them moving faster, that's not correct, okay, because they don't actually move. They move backwards and forwards around a fixed position, right? Okay, and you can see that this particle is going to collide with this particle, with its next door neighbour, and that means that the vibrations are going to get passed on to the neighbouring particles, right? So vibrations passed on to neighbouring particles. Now, because it's a metal, there's another method of transfer of heat as well. And you remember from your chemistry lessons that Metallic bonding is, a kind of, you've got a sea of delocalized electrons surrounding the ions in the metal lattice, right? And those delocalized electrons, they can actually move and transfer some of the heat as well. So free electrons can, move through, and that they are actually mobile, so we can talk about those moving, right? Okay. One advantage of having no insulation around the chimney. Okay, let's look back at our diagram. You can see that if there was insulation around the chimney, then all of the heat would stay in the chimney and just go out of the chimney at the top. However, because there's no insulation, then that heat can radiate into, all of the rooms, and it will radiate into the loft space as well. Okay, so this idea that heat is transferring from the chimney and warming the rest of the house. Okay, and that's the end of that question.